Hey everybody, it's Zach from Myshire Farm, and we actually got a letter in the mail from Jim, which is our MPIP inspector, and he's a big part of the Ohio Poultry Association. And I wanted to read this as it is a update on the avian influenza outbreak. Some of this is just for Ohio, but there's recommendations in what we know so far, and I think that that might help a lot of people, and I want to keep everybody as updated as possible. He will be here this week to do our testing as we get tested once every 3 months now, and with that, I'm hoping that he'll have time to do a video that we can post next week from him with more updates. This was written March 22nd. So a lot of things change in a couple of weeks, but here we go. Dear MPIP participants, the Ohio Poultry Association has asked me to contact all of my clients to give you all the update on the 2022 avian influenza outbreak and to stress good biosecurity. As of this week, 13 million chickens, turkeys, and other domestic fowl in 8 states have been euthanized to control avian influenza. This number includes many backyard flocks, as in mixed flocks of less than 100 birds, not unlike what most of us have. The good news is that so far there have been no avian influenza infected poultry in Ohio. I do believe that has changed, but we will need to confirm that with him. This is despite the presence of avian influenza in wild birds they found here in Ohio, a gull and 3 bald eagles tested near Lake Erie. This is not the time to let down our collective guard. This past week, there were several suspected cases of AI in backyard flocks in Ohio that fortunately all turned out to be negative. What we know, the avian influenza this year is it's a high strain. Translation, if you have it, you will know it. The first symptoms farmers are noticing are a drop in water consumption and the birds being unusually quiet. This is followed by respiratory issues, lethargy, and death. Waterfowl may not show symptoms. If you suspect that you have the birds with these symptoms, contact the OPA, which in this case is the Ohio Poultry Association. You should have one of those in each state. This year's avian influenza is jumping from wild waterfowl to domestic poultry. All of the AI detected so far seems to be of the same strain, despite the flocks being spread out across the U.S. This year, the AI doesn't seem to be spreading between domestic poultry flocks, which is a good thing. This could change if AI positive flocks are not quickly identified and destroyed. Spread between domestic poultry flocks would make this outbreak many times more severe. A big risk factor for a backyard flock contacting avian influenza is the presence of a pond on their property. All of the backyard flocks with AI have had ponds. Besides this, there's great uncertainty as to how the AI is moving into domestic poultry from wild birds. Many theories have been floated: poop on shoes, intermediate hosts, non-waterfowl birds, wind, rodents, etc. Recommendations, and I think this is for everybody. Right now, it is suggested that poultry keepers isolate their flocks indoors. Yes, backyard birds have strong immune systems precisely because they are outside, unlike commercial birds. However, this strain of AI is killing even the most robust of backyard birds. Keep wild birds, especially waterfowl, from your flock. Use decoys, deterrents, noise, etc. Keep wild birds off your pond. Keep your poultry from your ponds. Don't frequent areas visited by waterfowl and risk tracking disease on your shoes and clothing. Designate a pair of shoes just for your poultry pens. Also, as I have discussed individually with you while testing, start your secondary flocks. Don't hide birds. No one likes having to kill chickens. However, it is better to kill one flock and stop the spread of a disease than have a disease infect multiple flocks through carelessness and disregard for other poultry keepers. The best strategy is to prepare for the entire loss of your flock and to have a backup secondary flock through which one can start over. A fellow Java breeder had a barn fire and lost his flock of chickens. He was able to start over because of call birds he had sold to friends. A second flock is not just a hedge against disease. The various national and state agencies overseeing poultry are desperately trying to avoid shutting everything down like they had to in 2015, which was the last AI outbreak that was like this. A positive avian influenza case in a backyard flock in the next couple of weeks in Ohio would most likely put an end to the spring and probably the summer showing season in Ohio. Already several states, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arkansas, have restricted poultry shows and sales. If shows are not canceled altogether, some states and shows are eliminating waterfowl from their shows because they may not show symptoms of AI and be carriers of AI for chickens. Good biosecurity is not only important for the health and welfare of your flock, but also for the wide poultry community. There are currently no restrictions for Ohio people showing chickens within the state. With no official guidance, each keeper must balance on their own the risks of showing with the benefits of going to shows. Ditto for swaps and sales. Minimize your risks and quarantine your poultry whenever they leave and return to your property. If you require new stock, acquire new stock, this may not be the best time to acquire new stock, especially if you are uncertain of where it is coming from. There are currently no restrictions for Ohio chicken people selling or showing out of the state as long as they meet the requirements of the states where the birds are going. This said, the Ohio Department of Agriculture and the Ohio Poultry Association are strongly recommending that keepers limit and delay showing and shipping out of state until this summer, unless you have good biosecurity and you have confirmed that AI is not in your flock. Everyone is hoping that AI will go away with warm weather and the end of the spring migration. The NPIP program in Ohio is currently suspended. For backyard flocks, we are not testing birds right now. This has been the case since mid-February and likely will continue through April or longer. Now, just so you know, because we are considered a hatchery, that does not apply to us, but that would apply to anyone that is not considered a hatchery. We are also depending on you all to report sick birds because we are dealing with a high path strain of AI. Once the program has started back up, we will work quickly to address the backlog and testing created by the suspension of the program. Like I said, he's coming on Wednesday, so we are still getting tested if there's any questions on that. No one is kicked out of the program or anything, we just have to be patient. The Ohio Poultry Association has the authority to extend the Palorum clean status of Ohio NPIP participants that have been forced to delay their testing because we are Palorum-free state. This means people can show within the state of Ohio even if the Palorum testing is expired, because the only requirement for showing in Ohio is a negative Palorum test. However, OPA, which is the Ohio Poultry Association, doesn't have the authority to do the same for avian influenza testing, which is required by most other states. OPA is allowing a limit amount of AI testing starting April 1st for AI clean small flock owners with time-sensitive activities in other states. Contact OPA or me if you can't postpone shipments. We regret the inconvenience that this causes. So long story short, it is getting more serious. We are hoping that once the migration season is over, it's going to be able to get much more controlled. Again, that is all the information I have right now. He did say some things on the phone when we scheduled our NPIP testing. We are going to be tested for Palorum and AI and a couple other things like we are normally. Again, that is because we have been redesignated as a hatchery and not a backyard flock. But like I said, he'll be here this week. I'm hoping that he'll have time to be able to do an updated video, and we will send that to you as soon as possible. I know that it was kind of boring because all I was doing was reading, but this video was mainly just for information. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I will try to ask those questions when he's here. And thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned. We've got a bunch of good videos coming your way. Thanks, everybody. And as always, stay safe.